Have you guys seen that ex who comes back saying they've changed? Well, the Chiefs are doing exactly that, but with players. What a crazy week for Kansas City, huh? While everyone is cutting players to get to the 53-man roster, the Chiefs are doing the opposite here. And man, when I say there's some weird movement going on, you guys have no idea what Brett Veach pulled off this time. There are players coming back, hot rumors coming out, and there's a question that won't go away. Is it genius or nostalgia? Because some of these moves are leaving me kinda confused, to tell the truth. The Chiefs brought back Derek Nottie from the Jets in a trade for conditional 2027 picks. Yes, that same Nottie they let go in March. Man, this is like when you sell your video game to the pawn shop and a week later go back wanting to buy it back, only paying more. Let's get to the facts that matter. The guy has 7 years with the team. He's practically part of the Arrowhead furniture. He helped win 3 Super Bowls, knows Spagnuolo's system with his eyes closed, has plenty of experience with 115 career games and 87 as a starter. So far, so good, right? But then comes the part that hurts. The 2024 season was a complete disaster. 11 tackles in 17 games with only 3 solo tackles and 8 assisted. Man, 11 tackles in an entire season? My cousin playing video games makes more tackles than that. And look, he played all 17 games. It wasn't even due to injury. The PFF numbers are just heartbreaking. 35.8 overall grade in 2024, ranking 207th among 220 qualified defensive tackles. In run defense, which was always his specialty, it was even worse. 40.3 grade, 183rd place. Pass rush, then? Let's not even talk about it. 46.6 grade, 219th out of 220. Basically, there was only one guy worse than him in the entire country. For you to understand the decline, between 2018 and 2020, the guy was decent. In 2020, he had an 81.7 grade in run defense, ranking in the 95th percentile. He was really good at what he did, but from there, it was all downhill. In the last 3 years, the grades were 37, 41.4, and 40.8. It's like watching that veteran player from your favorite team that you know is done, but the coach insists on starting him. Now here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean completely crazy. Why on earth pay a pick for a guy that the Jets were going to cut anyway? Seriously, look at the timeline. The Jets signed him for $1.4 million in March, which is practically NFL minimum wage. Even undrafted free agents were passing him on the depth chart. The guy played 29 snaps in the last preseason game, which is basically the universal signal of, you're going to get cut. They just had to wait until Tuesday, and he would be available for free. It's like paying for advance tickets to a show that you know will have half price at the door. It doesn't make sense, but okay, Chiefs being Chiefs. Brett Veach must have woken up nostalgic and just went for it. The only explanation that makes some sense is the injury situation. With Omar Norman injured in the knee since the combine, Felix Anaduke-Uzuma probably out for the entire season with a tendon injury, and having to rely only on Chris Jones, Mike Pennell, and Jerry Tillery on the defensive line, maybe they wanted to ensure a known body. Pennell is already 33 years old, and Jerry Tillery, well, let's say he's also not exactly an all-pro. But still, burning the 6th-round pick they got by trading Sky Moore for a 29-year-old guy who had 221 snaps last season, the lowest mark of his career? It's like trading a new smartphone for a Nokia brick phone, because at least I know how to use this one. Functional? Maybe. Smart? Debatable. The most ironic thing is that the Chiefs could have simply re-signed him in March for the same amount the Jets paid. $1.4 million isn't money that breaks anyone's salary cap. But no, they preferred to let him go, sign Jerry Tillery, draft Norman Lott, and now bring Nottie back paying a pick. It's 4D chess that only Veach understands. Or it's just bad management. Speaking of questionable decisions, let's talk about Sky Moore, who at least had the good sense to leave before things got more embarrassing. The Chiefs sent him and a 7th-round pick in 2027 to the 49ers in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Basically, they paid to get rid of the problem. Sky Moore is the perfect example of how sometimes the draft is a giant lottery where you think you bought the winning ticket, but actually won a keychain. Chosen in the 2nd round in 2022, pick 54, to be nothing less than Tyreek Hill's replacement. Yes, you read that right. The guy who ran like the Flash was replaced by, well, someone who apparently forgot how to catch the ball. Let's get to the numbers that hurt the soul. In 3 full seasons in Kansas City, 43 receptions for 494 yards and 1 touchdown. For you to understand, that's less than 15 receptions per year. There are backup tight ends who produce more than that. And in 2024, 0 receptions. 0! The guy played 6 games and couldn't catch a single ball. It's like being a goalkeeper and not being able to defend your own goal. The most tragic thing is that you could see he had potential. At Western Michigan, he was a machine. 171 receptions for 2,482 yards in 3 years. He arrived in Kansas City with all the hype in the world, especially after they traded Hill. The fans were excited, the press saying he could be the future, Patrick Mahomes ready to have a new toy. But that's where the problem lies. It's one thing to dominate against Western Michigan college players, another is playing in the NFL with professional safeties wanting to rip your head off. He never managed to make the transition, whether due to lack of physicality, route running problems, or simply because sometimes talent doesn't translate. The fact is, he became that draft pick everyone prefers to forget. The most iconic moment of his career? The touchdown in Super Bowl 57 against the Eagles. 4 yards, fourth quarter, helped secure the title. For a few seconds there, it seemed like the whole bet had been worth it. But that was basically the peak of the mountain. And from there, it was all downhill. The offensive line at least seems solid. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are established All-Pros, and Josh Simmons, as a rookie at left tackle, has shown he can handle the job. The problem continues to be depth. If someone gets injured, especially on the offensive line, it can get complicated quickly. Travis Kelce obviously continues to be Travis Kelce, but at 34 years old, it's natural for the body to start charging the bill. That's why developing other receivers became a priority, even though so far it's not working very well. The reality is that looking at the roster as a whole, there's talent to fight for another title, but the margin of error is smaller. The depth isn't the same as it was a few years ago, and betting on declining veterans like Noddy instead of developing young players can be risky. But who knows? Maybe experience and chemistry compensate for the lack of athletic explosion. Or maybe we're seeing the Chiefs trying to hold things together for one more year before a more serious rebuild. Now talking about things that really worked, let's go to the preseason game against Chicago that showed at least that not everything is lost in Kansas City. Because after so much questionable movement in the front office, it was good to see that at least on the field things are falling into place. The starters took the field and simply destroyed everything in the first quarter. 193 yards, 10 points, 0 penalties, and 12 first downs. Patrick Mahomes had more than 11 yards per pass attempt, which is absurd even by his standards. The guy was playing like it was a video game on easy mode. But what really caught attention were the deep balls finally working again. Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster catching 50-yard passes each, throwing the ball way downfield and showing that the Chiefs really want to stretch the field vertically. This is new for the Chiefs, who in recent years have lived more off short and medium passes, leaving speed aside after Tyreek Hill left. The offensive line also deserves recognition. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith dominating the line of scrimmage, giving clean time for Mahomes to work his magic and opening holes for the running backs to breathe. The left side especially was rock solid, which is fundamental considering that Josh Simmons is taking over left tackle as a rookie. No pressure from the blind side, no runs being stopped in the backfield. The defensive line also deserves recognition. Spagnuolo showed that when he has the starters on the field, things work. They limited Chicago's starters to a measly 26 yards, forced 2 punts, and got a sack, keeping the Bears at 2.9 yards per play. It's the kind of performance that reminds you why this defense was once elite in playoffs. Jaden Hicks stood out for his versatility in the secondary, showing he can play multiple positions and will be an important piece in the scheme. The guy is only in his second year but already demonstrates tactical maturity that impresses. Juju Smith-Schuster also looked healthier and more confident than he had been lately. The most impressive number might be this. Considering the entire preseason when the starters were on the field, it was 23 plays for 24 points. It's ridiculous efficiency, even being preseason. If they can maintain this synchrony in the regular season, it will be a nightmare for any defense to face. Of course, you have to be careful because it's preseason, the schemes are more basic, and Chicago wasn't with their entire defense on the field. But the fluidity of the offense and the intensity of the defense with the starters at least shows that the team knows what they're doing when it matters. The problem continues to be depth. When the starters came out, you could see that the defense especially has serious holes. Chicago managed to react and almost turned the game around, which is worrying considering that throughout the season injuries will happen and you need to trust the reserves. But at least the foundation is solid. Mahomes distributing the ball to everyone, offensive line protecting well, defense creating pressure with the main rushers. If they can keep everyone healthy, especially Chris Jones, who played 83% of snaps last season at 30 years old, there might be another special year ahead. But let's talk about the part that really mattered in the game. The Chiefs' offense working like a Swiss machine in the first quarter. Because after so much speculation about trades and moves, at least on the field you could see that the attack is sharp for 2025. Patrick Mahomes came in inspired and simply didn't miss anything. Every pass attempt of his yielded more than 11 yards, which is a completely absurd number even by his standards. The guy was playing like it was a video game on easy mode, but what really caught attention were the deep balls finally working again. Tyquan Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster catching 50-yard passes each, throwing the ball way downfield and showing that the Chiefs really want to go back to stretching the field vertically. This is something that had been kind of missing since Tyreek Hill left. In recent years, it became a lot of short passes, screens, slants, those safer things. Seeing them throwing bombs again is refreshing. The offensive line also deserves its own paragraph because it was simply flawless. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith dominating the line of scrimmage, giving clean time for Mahomes to work his magic and opening holes for the running backs to breathe. The left side especially was rock solid, which is fundamental considering that Josh Simmons is taking over left tackle as a rookie. No pressure from the blind side, no runs being stopped in the backfield. The running backs also took good advantage of opportunities. They managed to catch several balls in the backfield, showing that the passing game to the backs is working, which is something that had disappeared a bit from the Chiefs' offensive vocabulary. Isaiah Pacheco was cutting well through the holes, and you could see that when the offensive line does its job, the guy can really be productive. The most impressive thing might have been the overall synchrony. 0 penalties in the first quarter is something from a team that trained a lot together and is in sync. Precise routes, perfect timing between quarterback and receivers, offensive line working as a unit. It's the kind of thing you see in teams that know exactly what they're doing. Of course, it's preseason, the schemes are more basic, and Chicago wasn't with their entire defense on the field. But the fluidity of the offense at least shows that the chemistry between the starters is still there. Andy Reid clearly hasn't lost his touch for drawing plays, and Mahomes continues to be Mahomes. The number that sums it all up, 23 plays for 24 points, considering the entire preseason. It's an efficiency that borders on ridiculous. If they can take this to the regular season, it will be a nightmare for any defense to try to stop. In the last preseason games, you could see the guy was desperate. Against Seattle, he had a sequence of embarrassing drops, but then at the end he had an 88-yard punt return for a touchdown. It's like playing 90 minutes of bad football and scoring a great goal in the last minute. Impressive, but doesn't solve the bigger problem. The 49ers picked him up because they're really desperate. Brandon Ayuk still recovering from knee injury and not returning before Week 6. Juwan Jennings with calf problems and wanting a new contract. Jordan Watkins injured too. When you're drowning, any board serves as a float. The reality is that Moore will have one last chance to show he wasn't just hype. At 24 years old, there's still time to turn things around, especially with Kyle Shanahan, who has a reputation for reviving forgotten receivers. But honestly, after 3 years showing the same movie, it's hard to believe the problem was just the environment. And since we're talking about running backs that the Chiefs don't have, let's go to the rumors that are popping up about Tyler Allgeier. Because apparently, after looking for used defensive tackles, now the fashion is to covet other people's running backs. The Atlanta guy's name is circulating as a possible reinforcement for Kansas City's backfield. And look, at least this time it makes a little more sense. Allgeier isn't some marquee name like Breece Hall that everyone drools over, but the guy produces when he gets a chance, and more importantly, won't cost a kidney. Let's get to the numbers that really matter. The guy is in the last year of his rookie contract, earning $1.1 million base salary in 2025. It's practically banana split money in the NFL world. The total contract was 4 years for $3.99 million, with only $333,000 guaranteed. Compare that to some veterans who are in more in a week. The guy had more than 1,000 yards as a rookie in 2022, which is no joke. Then the Falcons went and drafted Bijan Robinson in the first round, and Allgeier became a backup. But what a backup, right? Even splitting snaps, Robinson and Allgeier combined for 2,100 yards in 2024, ranking 4th among running back duos in the NFL. Robinson had 1,456 yards, Allgeier contributed 644, maintaining a 4.4 yards per carry average in Atlanta's mediocre offense. But here comes the impressive detail. 47 receptions on 52 attempts throughout his career with 0 drops. 0. The guy's practically a magnet when the ball comes his way. For a team that lives off Mahomes' checkdowns to running backs, this is pure gold. Physically, the guy is different too. 5'10", 225 pounds of muscle, old school style of running between tackles, breaking people in front. He had an 85.7 PFF grade in 2024, which was the 12th best among all running backs in the league. For comparison, Isaiah Pacheco had 65.2, ranking 51st. So we're talking about a real technical upgrade here. Now comes the million-dollar question. Literally, how much will the Falcons want for him? Historically, running backs like Brian Robinson went for 6th-round picks. Analysts estimate that Allgeier would be worth at most a 5th-round pick, but would probably go for a 6th or 7th. The problem is he's in the last year of his contract, so no team wants to trade a pick for a guy who's leaving for free next year. The reality is this becomes a race against time. If the Falcons are competing for playoffs, they won't sell. But if they're doing poorly by October, Allgeier's value skyrockets near the trade deadline. Teams fighting for Super Bowls pay much more for a playoff reinforcement than for depth at the beginning of the season. For the Chiefs, it makes total financial sense. The guy earns peanuts, is 25 years old, and would be the most physical running back on the roster. With Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith opening holes, imagine Allgeier running between tackles. It would be that hammer they never really had. But here's the dilemma. Is it worth burning another pick after Noddy? Because at some point, these picks matter, especially when you have to pay huge salaries to Mahomes, Chris Jones, and company. Cheap young talent is essential, and keep trading for veterans can charge the bill later. I just hope that if it really happens, it's for something like a 6th or 7th round pick, because then at least it doesn't hurt as much. You can't forget about the other names that are on the Chiefs' radar for 2025. Because apparently, after rescuing Noddy and speculating about Allgeier, there's more movement happening behind the scenes. Juju Smith-Schuster is back for his 3rd stint with the team, and man, it's impressive how this guy became the Benjamin Button of football. He started as a young prospect in Pittsburgh, became an overpaid veteran in New England, and now he's back being treated like he's a rookie again. The guy's only 28 years old, but already seems like he's played in 3 different NFL eras. His re-signing makes sense for the price. After that horrible season with the Patriots where he caught 29 balls for 260 yards, anything above minimum wage would already be profit for him. In 2024, back with the Chiefs, it was only 18 receptions for 231 yards, but at least he managed 2 touchdowns. It's nothing spectacular, but for a WR4 or WR5 on the depth chart, it works. Omar Norman Lott continues to be an unknown. The 2nd-round rookie was expected to be one of the main bets on the defensive line, but between knee problems discovered at the combine and other injuries, the guy could barely train properly. When you draft a defensive tackle in the 2nd round expecting internal pass rush and the guy stays in the medical department, it's complicated. Chris Jones continues to be the king of the mountain, but at 30 years old and after playing 83% of snaps in 2024, it's obvious they need to reduce his load. Mike Pennell at 34 years old won't hold up much longer as the main nose tackle. Jerry Tillery came as a free agent to provide depth, but let's face it, the guy has never been more than mediocre since he was drafted in the 1st round by the Chargers in 2019. In the secondary, Jaden Hicks is emerging as one of the few pieces of good news. The 2nd-year guy has shown versatility to play safety and even linebacker in some formations, which is gold for Spagnuolo, who loves to complicate opposing quarterbacks' lives.